So how do you actually consistently bypass gatekeepers when you're doing your cold calls in 2024, right? It's as simple as just not sounding like a salesman, to be honest. So you literally just have to convince them that you're a friend of the prospect and that you know the prospect well on a personal level without lying, right? And it's all about tonality. It's all about how you say it, right? Because like there's two variants, there's two ways you can do it, right? You can reach out to the like the gatekeeper can pick up the phone and you can say, oh hi, it's Max calling from Sales Lead. I'm just looking to speak to John Smith. Is it okay if you put me through? Right? Or even if you use the variation of that, hey, it's Max calling from Sales Lead. Can I speak to John Smith, please? Like immediately the gatekeeper is thinking, okay, it's a salesman. I am literally trained to put the right people through and reject the wrong people who are just going to waste the decision maker's time. Right, so they have an option. You have to see it from their perspective. They're thinking, okay, I don't want to reduce my chance of getting fired here, so I really don't want to put through the wrong person. So when you're bypassing a gatekeeper, all you're trying to do is sound like the right person. And the best way to do that is sound like a personal friend of the prospect, right? So what you can do is say, oh, hey, is John there? Oh yeah, who's calling? Oh, it's Max. He'll know who it is. Oh, it's Max Ross. Yeah, he'll know what it is. Oh, what is it for? Oh, it's just some personal business. Like, do you see how I sound like I know the prospect by doing that, right? Rather than saying, oh, hi, it's Max here. I'm really looking to speak to John Smith. I work for Sales Lead. Can you put me through? Like, it's night and day, right? So you almost have to adopt the mindset of, if my friend worked at this business, right, and I genuinely wanted to speak to my friend, right? I didn't have his mobile. I wanted to get through to him, and I had to call the business number, right? What would I actually say? I wouldn't say, oh, hi, it's Max calling from Sales Lead. I want to speak to John Smith. I'd say, oh, hi, it's Max. Can I speak to John, please? Yeah, what is it for? Again, and then I'd go through that. Like, I'd make it very obvious that I'm a personal friend with him, and I'd be vague, right? I wouldn't feel the need to justify myself to the gatekeeper. I wouldn't feel the need to say, oh, I'm calling him with regards to some like cold email system that I want to help him set up. No, I'd be vague. I wouldn't feel the need to justify myself to the gatekeeper because I know it's my right to speak to this person, and that's the mindset you have to have. So be vague, right? Because that's what you'd be doing if you truly knew the person anyway. You wouldn't allude to too much detail or give too much away to the gatekeeper, and you'd assume that they'd do what you want, right? So you'd almost like have a tone of voice where like it would be like inconceivable for them to reject you and for them to not put you through. Like that's the type of tonality that you have to adopt with this. And yeah, just really put yourself to the mindset of, imagine I'm calling a friend, right? But I couldn't get through to them on their mobile. They owned a business and I had to call the business number, right? So really adopt that mindset and then think about how you'd actually say it. You wouldn't say their full name, you'd speak very vaguely, right? And you'd have that tonality of like, okay, it's literally my right to speak to this person, right? And in some way it is, even when we're calling people we don't know, right? Because they've got a phone number on there for a reason. If you genuinely believe in your product, you should do everything in your power to speak to that person. And if you know that your product can solve a painful problem that they're dealing with, then why not have that almost arrogance about it when like they need to know what you're speaking. They need to know why you're calling them. They need to know what you're speaking about, right? So the easiest way to get rejected from gatekeepers is just to look like a salesman. And I've kind of given you an example of how you can do that in the best way. It's again, by going into too much detail, by talking about the prospect's full name, by talking about your company name, and really feeling the need to justify yourself to the gatekeeper. Like, you don't need to do that. You have to think, like I said before, gatekeepers are literally trained to handle and reject calls from salespeople, right? They're not trained to handle calls who ring up and say, oh, I'm looking to speak to John, like assuming that it's a friend of theirs, right? Because they're not used to that. That's why it works, right? It's a huge pattern interrupt, and it doesn't like automatically register the click where response they have of, okay, someone says this, just immediately categorize them as a salesman, don't put them through no matter what. And then once you already sound like that, there's nothing really that you can say to like claw your position back, right? You've been put in that box and you're not gonna get out of it, especially on something like a cold call, where you have literally a very, very, very small amount of time to make a good impression, right? So silence is your biggest weapon here as well. Once you say that frame, once you say that opener, just shut up, right? Like you want to say it in a way, like I said, that assumes that you need to speak to this person. That's your right to speak to this person. And after making your request to do this, just shut up, right? And they're going to squirm. It's really going to like register something in their brain that they're going to be like, okay, I haven't heard this before. This is weird, right? This doesn't fit into the usual person that calls me. Like I have to put them through, right? Because it's so unique. So you need to shut up after you say that initial opener, right? And another key thing here is, if the gatekeeper gives you resistance, don't bother befriending the gatekeeper. Don't spend longer than you have to, right, talking to them, because cold calling is all about volume, right? And the opportunity cost of spending like 3-4 minutes speaking to the gatekeeper is an absolute waste of time, because what you can do in that 3 to 4 minutes, you could have made another 20 dials and booked in 2 more meetings, right? So it's only really worth befriending that gatekeeper when you have an extremely limited amount of data that you can contact. And usually that's in the case where you're targeting way bigger accounts and you really want to land a client, right? A really big client. So it's actually worth your time to go that extra mile and talk to the gatekeeper more, just so you can get through to the decision maker, right? So all you're doing, just to summarize, like, a gatekeeper has 2 functions, right? Put through the right calls and turn away the wrong calls. All you have to do is just sound like the right call. That's all bypassing the gatekeeper is. So you literally just need to sound like the right call, right? And you just need to make it sound unique enough and human enough for them to pass you to the decision maker. That's all that bypassing the gatekeeper is about, right? And the ultimate way to bypass the gatekeeper is to only dial mobile numbers, right? So if we're only calling mobiles of the people that we're reaching out to, we're never going to have to deal with gatekeepers, right? Because we have good quality data. We know that if they pick up, we're speaking to the right person. If they don't pick up, we can just move on to the next one, and we can just call them back later anyway. So getting good quality data is the best way to bypass gatekeepers. But yes, in some ways, there might be some mobile numbers that you can't get. So it's helpful to have this skill in your arsenal, because even if you do call a mobile, sometimes like someone else can pick up, right? So it's really helpful to have that skill of knowing how to get through to the right person, right? And it all just comes down to sounding human, having a proper pattern interrupt, right? And sounding like their friend without actually being their friend, right? And having that confidence where, having that tonality which sounds like I deserve to speak to this person, right? So that's everything I'd say in regards to how to properly bypass the gatekeeper in 2024. It's everything that I'll do. And yeah, that's everything. If you want a full guide on cold calling, there's a link in the description where you can download literally everything I know about cold calling. It's on a Notion page. If you want more information about what we do specifically as a business, you can book in a call with me directly. We can have a conversation about how we can help, if we can help. We are very limited in who we take on, so we might turn you away, but it's worth booking a call anyway. I'll see you in the next video. Hopefully you enjoyed it.